Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. On tonight's episode, we're going to break down the Orioles signing of reliever Andrew Kittredge as they round out their bullpen. And we're also going to open up the mailbag to talk about what might be a realistic expectation for Jackson Holliday in 2025. And all of that is coming up on tonight's episode of Orioles on the Verge, which is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or the first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, to NHL and UFC, BetOnline is the number one source for sports betting source for the new year. From touchdowns to three-pointers and hat tricks, BetOnline has you covered on every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. And as we like to do at the top of every episode, we have some new members of our Patreon community to welcome. And for that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Yes, please take advantage of our 25% off for 2025 special we have going on at least this month. We probably could keep going all year. You never know, but just in case we don't, get on it right now. Just like B did at the single A level, very much appreciated. And Baseball Fan 982, a.k.a. Alex, sign up for the AA level for a year up front. So you get that 25% off, whether it's a monthly or yearly, that first month/year. Appreciate you guys for taking advantage of it, and I hope you enjoy the content and you want to keep your subscription.
Absolutely. And as a reminder, we're running our top 50 prospects countdown list, and you can join right now at the $3, $5, or $10 levels in our Patreon community and have access to the remainder of the countdown as well as the episodes that have aired up to this point. We just posted the 40th ranked prospect on Wednesday, and we're going to continue throughout the month of January and well into February with the countdown, so you're not going to want to miss that. And when February rolls around, the Orioles report to spring training, they'll have at least one new reliever in their bullpen, as they officially announced an agreement earlier this week with reliever Andrew Kittredge on a 1-year, $9 million deal. It amounts to a $10 million guarantee, as the contract also includes a $9 million club option with a $1 million buyout for 2026. Kittredge had spent most of his career in Tampa Bay, but pitched last season for the St. Louis Cardinals and had a nice bounce back in his first full season back from Tommy John surgery, posting good numbers for the Cardinals as one of their steadier relief options, including a 2.80 ERA, 23.3% strikeout rate, and 7% walk rate in 70 2/3 innings out of the bullpen. And that's been the key for Kittredge throughout his career, which has really been the ability to limit walks. The high mark in his career came back in 2021 when he was selected as an all-star. Not a common thing to see among non-closers, and Kittredge was not the Rays' primary closer that year, but he was dominant, posting a 1.88 ERA in 71 2/3 innings pitched. Since then, he's had Tommy John surgery, maybe not quite up to that level of dominance at this point, but still a very effective reliever. Nick, I'll start with you on this. What are your thoughts on this signing?
The exact type of move that I assumed was coming. Like when you saw this team move on from Jacob Webb and Danny Coulombe a couple weeks ago, we were talking about all of that. I said, I think the Orioles are targeting someone. Like they have a plan here. It's not Cade Stroud, Luis Gonzalez aren't going to fill those innings. It's not going to be Brandon Young. Like Cade Stroud and Luis Gonzalez, those guys are on the 40-man roster. They have earned a shot, but their value comes in having options, right? They're going to do something, and it's not going to be Tanner Scott. For the love of God, please don't let it ever be Tanner Scott again. But it's not going to be that big of a move, but something really solid to help not even just like the fringes, low leverage innings, not the 6th inning guy, but something to help secure the later innings in these games. And Kittridge is that. I think because until I see Felix Bautista back out there on that mound, dominating again on a regular basis, I think it's fair to question, like, what is he going to look like when he comes back? And even if he does come back and he is Felix again, then how hard are the Orioles going to push him, especially early on in the year? So I like having Kittridge. He's a veteran. He's been setting up closers for a long time now. He does struggle against lefties. He's got those splits, but Sir Anthony Dominguez didn't last season. Fairly even splits there. You've got Perez. You've got Soto. You've got a good group of lefties. Keegan Aiken's coming off a great year. You got enough lefties there where it's not like protecting Kittredge, but you've got enough for Brandon Hyde in this organization to play with late in games there. So I don't know. Keeps the ball on the ground, does a good job of limiting free passes. He's, like you said, he's going to be another year removed from Tommy John, even though he worked a significant number of innings last season. So that's a good sign there. I don't know. It was the strangest thing about this signing was that I feel like it was largely accepted by the fan base on social media, which, like, yeah, that's a small bubble that we are a part of and pay attention to, but it's a very angry bunch. And I don't know, there was too much positivity in the mentions. I didn't know what to do when I saw people like praising this signing. And the only like negative comment I think that was in our mentions, at least, was like, I don't know. He got worked too hard last year with St. Louis. It's like, is he going to be able to stand up for that again this year with the Orioles? I'm like, if that's the worst, then I mean, what's going on here? It was just weird. But yeah, it's a good signing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like this signing. Yeah, I don't know if he was necessarily the plan because we'll get to Jeff Hoffman and everything that went on with that. But especially when you consider that he was like a backup plan when something else fell through, aka Jeff Hoffman, then yeah, I especially like it. I mean, the slider, he's always had one of the most wicked sliders you could ever see, considering he had a 100th percentile chase rate in 2021 when he was dominant. And guess what? Last year he had 100th percentile chase rate with his pitches there in 2024 as well. So, and it's weird that he gets a lot of whiffs in the zone. He gets more chase than anybody in Major League Baseball, and yet his strikeout rate not that high. So maybe the Orioles feel like they could get his strikeouts up. They can tinker around a little bit more. I know he already spams the slider. It's like 50% of his pitches are sliders, but maybe they feel like they could even get more strikeout potential out of him. But the first thing I thought was that here's Jacob Webb, but better and more proven. And yeah, if Yennier Cano is healthy and Andrew Kittredge is healthy, two guys that Kittredge had 74 appearances last year. Cano has been the workhorse for the Orioles the past 2 years. If you could use these guys in more of like a fireman role who come in and get the last 2 outs of an inning, or matchups here with righties like Vivek and Nick said, dominates righties, has struggled against lefties. Maybe you try to limit him in that role, especially with so many lefties in the bullpen potentially already. Yeah, I think there's nothing not to like about the signing. And yeah, it's either a 1-year $10 million deal or a 2-year $18 million deal. And considering the Orioles were offering a 3-year, $40 million deal for Hoffman, yeah, I think the wallet is open. It's just trying to get players willing to accept our money this offseason.
Before we get into Kittredge, before we get into Hoffman, I'll just add my thoughts on Kittredge real quick, which is that I do think it's a good move for the Orioles. And Nick's right. They should have enough cushion in the bullpen that they don't have to worry too much about Kittredge being kind of a righty specialist. When you look at his numbers, it is pretty glaring that the platoon splits are definitely more towards right-handed hitters in his favor. Hopefully that turns out to be the case where you can get healthy, productive seasons from even just 2 of Perez, Aiken, or Soto would go a long way here. I will throw this out, though, which is I would not be shocked if they added another reliever somewhere along the line. And it might be a really under-the-radar type move that happens after spring training starts. Remember, that's how they acquired Coulombe. It was late in spring training when they got him a few years ago. So I wouldn't be shocked if we see another move. But this is an area of the roster where if the Orioles decide to go with this group to start out the season, I'd be comfortable with it.
Yeah. I already felt good about the bullpen. And then you mentioned Yennier Cano. I don't want to say he's the biggest winner in all of this if everything goes as planned and everybody stays healthy, but I really like Yennier Cano, them being able to like back him off a little bit and use him in a more specialized role. Just everyone. It's kind of like the whole couple years ago with Dylan Tate. When Dylan Tate went down, and we talked about this before he went down, it was like Dylan Tate is like the linchpin here that's just going to cause everything else to erupt, and that's exactly what happened. And I feel like bringing in Kittridge, that helps ease all of this. It's a nice cushion, like Zach said, and also just that safety of what if Felix comes back and he's not King Felix in the very beginning, and it takes him a month or it takes him 2 months. Then okay, sorry, you got Sir Anthony Dominguez, you've got Kittredge there in the back, the late innings. You've got enough to play with here until he's ready to roll. But best case scenario, if everything's cooking, yeah, the bullpen it's solid. Yeah, I do think there could be another addition, but as of maybe it's Rosny Contreras, maybe he sticks through. But I do agree that we're going to see somebody else a waiver claim. But in the meantime, I really like this bullpen like a lot.
Yeah, Felix Bautista, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Yennier Cano, Andrew Kittredge, Gregory Soto, Ciano Perez, and then you could either do Colin Selby, Keegan Aiken, Albert Suarez. There's a lot of options there at the tail end, and even an outside person that's not in the organization right now. So yeah, I think feel pretty good about the bullpen, and maybe if like we've been predicting, there's still a trade up our sleeves, then maybe someone that's currently in the rotation could either has to go back to AAA or stuffed into the bullpen.
There's one thing that will forever change the way you sleep, and it's the softest 100% organic cotton sheets from Boll & Branch. You'll fall asleep faster, wrapped in the most luxurious comfort. You'll never sleep hot again with sheets that feel breathable to sleep in. You'll experience the purest softness on night one and feel your sheets get even softer with every wash. Discover the difference with 15% off your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com with code CUMULUS. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
Let's pivot now to talk about Jeff Hoffman. Now, this is a pitcher that had been speculated to be a fit for the Orioles. Possibly they wanted him in the bullpen, or if they sought to stretch him out into a starter either in 2025 or later on in a long-term deal. And that at one point seemed to be the direction that the Orioles were going in. We learned this last week after Hoffman signed a 3-year, $33 million deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. Robert Murray over at Fansided reported that earlier Hoffman and the Orioles had agreed to terms on a 3-year, $40 million contract. However, the Orioles pulled out of the deal after the physical revealed some issues with his throwing shoulder that concerned the Orioles. Now, by all reports that we've seen so far, the Orioles did try to re-engage with Hoffman and work out another deal restructured after the physical. That ultimately didn't happen. It's also since been reported that the Atlanta Braves backed out of their own agreement with Hoffman over results of a physical. And although I don't believe the issue in their physical has been specified, kind of easy to draw a conclusion they may have had the same concern the Orioles did about the throwing shoulder. And by the way, the Braves were reported to have agreed to a 5-year deal with Hoffman. So Hoffman lands the division rival Blue Jays after the Orioles back out of a deal. It feels like this is one of those things that until the Orioles are proven wrong, a lot of people are going to sweat, because we know Hoffman's a good pitcher, and it stings that he does land in the American League East. But maybe long-term this proves to be the right move, but of course we can't really know that now. So just based on what we have in front of us, what are your guys' thoughts on this?
I love, and still do, if he's healthy, I love Hoffman. I think he would have been a great signing to, either use in the back end of the bullpen or try to make him into a starter, maybe bullpen this year, transition him to starter next year. Would have loved the deal, but I don't really understand why people are upset that they backed out of a deal where the MRI on his shoulder didn't turn up too good. And I'm glad that more news came out that the Braves had the same thought when they gave him his physical. So it's pretty funny that the Blue Jays can only get a guy to sign for them when he's backed out of 2 other deals previously because of a bad physical, bad medical report. But yeah, especially because we talked about a couple minutes ago, we got another guy in Andrew Kittredge that could slide in there. Maybe definitely not as good as Jeff Hoffman if he's healthy and on his game, but another guy that can slide into the back end of a bullpen. I just don't understand why fans were upset about this. Obviously, if he stays healthy the whole time, it is a dominant, awesome pitcher that maybe he has a chance to be, then it sucks you missed out on him. But to me, the risk is not worth the reward in that. And like Connor Newcomb talked about on Locked On Orioles, it's pretty cool that the Orioles were pretty officially ready to sign a pretty much relief pitcher to a 3-year deal at premium prices.
Yeah, I know I wasn't alone in wanting Jeff Hoffman before all this news came out. I really like that the plan of you bring him in on a multi-year deal with the intention of 2025 being the year where he's in the role that Kittridge is now going to serve in. If all is going well, maybe you start to stretch him out a little bit at the end of the year, or you just go into this saying, hey, you are the setup guy. You're a late inning guy here with Felix in 2025, but 2026, when the offseason starts, next offseason starts, we'll put you on the starters all-season plan to build you up. You're going to enter spring training in the mix for a rotation spot. You're going to get every opportunity to start for us down the road. And I think the $40+ million multi-year deal kind of tells you that might have been what was on the table, especially when the Orioles were reportedly in on Clay Holmes to kind of make that same transition. And so if they liked Hoffman stuff enough to give him that kind of money, I imagine that might have been the plan here with Hoffman. I think no one's ever said anything officially, but I would have been 100% down with that move. And again, I don't think this move, the $40 million, again, means that they're going to go off and they're looking to add big in the bullpen elsewhere and give Tanner Scott that kind of money. I really do think that was future starter money that they were promising Hoffman. It was annoying when the failed physical was announced, and then more annoying, he goes to Toronto. But then when that Atlanta report came out as well, like I agree, I'm fine. Like I have no more qualms about Jeff Hoffman. If he beats the odds, go beat the odds. Like good for you, man. Go get your money. Go enjoy 450 winning percentage baseball in Toronto, 40% winning percentage. Like go enjoy a mediocre season there with the Blue Jays before they have to like force to tear things down. But in the meantime, like if you're going to open your mouth and talk crap, you know what? Is that opening series? Orioles are in Toronto, right? I hope he's there opening day, and I hope it's I don't even care who it is, Colton Cowser, Jackson Holliday. Hopefully, I don't care. Send one deep and take the win off Jeff Hoffman on opening day. That would be a beautiful, beautiful opening day. But yeah, I don't feel bad about this one. Like, go ahead, go try your hand north of the border there.
I agree. It would have been cool because, like you said, after this year, Eflin's a free agent, Sagano's a free agent, Morton's a free agent. You know, who knows? Bradish is coming back. You could have slid Hoffman into a starter's role, but yeah, at least when he inevitably goes on the IL with shoulder discomfort, he can go coach his kids' lacrosse teams with the names that he has chosen to give them. So,
speaking of Jackson Holliday, we're going to open up a mailbag question. And we have gotten a lot of mailbag questions in the last few weeks over our Discord channel. And we just haven't had a chance to get to them because we actually haven't done a mailbag segment since the end of last year. And some of those questions now are out of date because there were a few in there about Jeff Hoffman. So sorry we didn't get to those earlier, but we are diving back into the mailbag tonight to pull out this question from Alex because it's probably something we were going to talk about sometime here in the next few weeks, certainly during spring training. And that is, what are your expectations for Jackson Holliday's 2025 season? Now, I feel like we've been on a little bit of a roller coaster with Holliday over the last year where a lot of hype going into camp. The three of us certainly believed that he looked really good in spring training and was ready to break camp with the Orioles. That didn't happen. He comes up to the majors after a very short stint in AAA, struggles, gets sent back down only to come up later in the summer. And while he was not as overmatched the second time around, he still had his fair share of ups and downs. So an underwhelming rookie season from a statistical standpoint, but there's still a lot of reasons to be optimistic about Jackson Holliday, which I suspect we'll get into with this discussion. But Nick, I'll start with you. What is a reasonable expectation for Holliday as we look ahead to the 2025 season?
Well, looking at projections first, I don't know what oopsie projections are.
They're new. I see people are loving them. I love the name, but yeah, at least it's a newer thing, and at least it's not identical to the other ones that are always popping up.
Yeah, there's an article here. It looks like out maybe after show reading for me. But I'm no longer going to reference Steamer or the Bat, whatever. It's only oopsie projections from here on out. We are an oopsie podcast. Projections have Holliday. I'm going to, a 108, 109 WRC plus, right around 10 home runs, give or take, 12% walk rate, 230 something batting average. I think that's a fair baseline. Trying to be temper expectations a little bit. I think that's a fair baseline. If that's the season he has this year, you're obviously not going to be excited. It's not the end of the world if that's the type of season he has, because he just turned 21 years old, like a couple of weeks ago. So he's still extremely young, with still a ton of potential in that bat and in the glove. But if that's the baseline, like that's okay, paired with progression in many other areas in the lineup. But I think the power shines through this season. That's my expectation for Holliday. He started lifting the ball more the second time he came up. The average exit velocity was above league average last year. He had a 45% hard hit rate, which was very good. He had a stretch there, and it was only a week, but he OPS over 1,000, hit 4 home runs. So he's proven he can do it in the big leagues. He of course needs to prove he can do that across a full season, more than just 5-6 days he did that in. But still, he's done it. He was a 20-year-old when he did it, after struggling mightily the first time and being sent back down. It's kind of also like a lot like we saw with Colton Cowser his first time up. It seemed like there's a lot of hard hit balls right at defenders. And just the batted ball gods had their like Ricky hazing with Holliday as well. And so, I'm not saying he's going to have a Colton Cowser-esque rise this year, but I think we see 15 plus home runs from Jackson Holliday this year. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people in the power department.
I am saying that he's going to have a Colton Cowser-esque rise this year because, he just turned 21 a month ago. He's going to continue to improve. I'm sure he's already gotten stronger since the season ended into now. He's just barely getting into his like man strength. The growth plates are almost fully grown out, and that never gets old. And I don't know. I'm a believer in the toe tap that he showed off at the very end of last year, and you see it when he released, I don't know if it was him, but there was video of him hitting in a cage or at least working out, and the toe tap was still present. So you have to believe he's comfortable with it, in getting more and more comfortable with it, and it's going to stick. And we've seen in his entire minor league career that he's going to hit for average. He's going to get on base. He's got more power than I think people expect. I'm kind of with Vivek's prediction here. Around a 750 OPS with 15 homers, 25 doubles, 20 stolen bases. Yeah, I could see something like that. I could honestly see even better than that. I could see him breaking out in a big way if the OPS over 800, all-star. Like, I think the potential is there. Jordan Westberg didn't light the world on fire in 2023, and then 2024 comes along, and he's an all-star. He's killing the ball until he got hurt later in the year, as we've talked about. But, yeah, I'm a big believer in Jackson Holliday. He was the number one prospect in baseball for a reason. I don't think anything's changed. He was 20 years old. He went through some growing pains, and I'm very excited to see what he does this year.
Yeah, Vivek's numbers are probably, if that's where his season ended, I would consider it a success, because at least he's going in the right direction and you're starting to see the power come through. When you look at some of the projections, and I think we'll stick with Oopsie for now. Is that our official projection system going forward, is Oopsie?
Yeah, I'm putting it in the social media handles right now.
And if we're wrong, we just say, Oopsie.
Well, if you look at Oopsie in comparison to FGDC and Steamer over at Fangraphs, they all kind of tell the same story, which is a batting average probably in the mid to upper 230s, an OPS that's going to be somewhere in the low 700s, with a 2 to 2.5 win season. I agree with Nick. That's not the most exciting thing in the world, but it does show some progression. And honestly, what I think I'm a little more concerned about is if the Orioles are going to go with Holliday in a platoon situation, which I think they're going to do for at least the first few months of this year, is what does the right-handed alternative to that look like, whether it's Ramon Urias or Jorge Mateo, knowing how streaky both of those guys can be. Either way, though, you got to find a way for the offense to pick up a little bit at second base this year, because I'm looking at the splits position by position for the Orioles last year, and I knew second base was a weak spot, but I'll put this out there as a trivia question. What was the combined OPS for players who had plate appearances at second base for the Orioles last season?
I definitely don't. I have no idea, but I'm gonna say it was pretty low and go with 640.
512.
Not as low as Nick, but not as high as Bob. 628.
Okay, yeah, that could definitely be a room for improvement there. That's for sure.
And I it's not blind optimism either to be high on Jackson Holliday going into next year. It's not putting on orange-colored glasses. You don't have to squint very hard at all to look at what he did and the adjustments that he made, both physically and in the data. There's a lot to look at here and be like, there's breakout potential here. And again, even if the power doesn't show, but he hits for high average and he's walking a bunch and he's a threat on the base paths and he's a solid defender, that's great. I was hoping we'd get that Jackson Holliday last year in the major leagues. But I just think, man, it's like you mentioned Jordan Westburg. That's the way people are talking about Jordan Westburg. You talk about Jordan Westburg projections. I mean, seems to be on another planet going into 2025. I'm fully bought in. I am drafting Jordan Westburg literally every single day already. If Jordan Westburg can do this, and you look at Jackson Holliday's pedigree and his potential and his profile in the minors, I don't see why Holliday couldn't tap into that power already this year. And again, surprise a lot of people. And if I'll take more strikeouts and fewer walks if he's going to tap into that power this year and smooth it out down the road. But again, I just don't think it's not crazy to think that Holliday can have a pretty solid breakout season this year.
Yeah, Jordan Westburg. Oopsie is actually a little bit lower on him than Steamer and FGDC. But between 3 and 3.5 WAR player. Oopsie has him at a 113 WRC plus. The other's 122. That's like a 750 OPS versus 780. Yeah, I think everyone loves Westburg, and I don't think you would have said the same thing a year ago coming into spring training. So I believe in a Holliday breakout. I believe in a Kobe Mayo breakout. Maybe Mayo plays third base against lefties, Westburg second base. Or obviously it could be easier to just put Ramon Urias or Jorge Mateo in against lefties. But there's so much to be excited about this spring training and this baseball season.
I'll put this out there as one final thought for Holliday. Seeing what he can do well to major leagues already. Let's say that he barely cracks 240 or even hits a little bit below 240. OPS is in the low 700s, but the defense grades out really high at second base. And maybe he's even a Gold Glove finalist. I know we don't care individually that much about Gold Glove awards, but it's an acknowledgement that he's a very good defender at the position. Would you see that as any kind of silver lining?
Yeah, I mean, he just turned 21, so it's not like it's make or break this year. Like, he could struggle this year again and then break out at 22 years old, the old age of 22 next year in 2026. But yeah, I think as long as he's making a progression and you're seeing a trend upwards, I think we know what the potential is, and hopefully one day he reaches it.
I also just look at, I don't know if I'm looking too deep into this, if it means nothing, but the Orioles haven't done anything up to this point, at least, to protect themselves in case Holliday tanks again, right? Like, yeah, they saw Ramon Urias, but I mean, Jorge Mateo is more than likely going to begin the year on the IL. It seems like that's where we're trending, right? So Like, what else have they done just in case? They brought in Franklin Barreto. They brought in Jeremiah Jackson. They brought in Vimeo Machine. Like, Noel Berth Romero sitting there in AAA. Anthony Servideo sitting there in AAA. Like, they haven't they always bring in that veteran second baseman, utility infielder that everybody hates so much. But they haven't even done that this offseason so far. I feel like that's a lot of confidence that this organization has in Holliday being able to break out as well.
Well, I guess Jordan Westburg could slide over if need be, and then fan favorite Emmanuel Rivera could man third base. Well, then you're going to just have a hole at third base instead of second base. So, yeah, it's a good point. So I think it's sometimes, and by sometimes I mean most of the time, when you're thinking about what the Orioles are preparing for, thinking about where they're leaning towards things, it's actions over quotes from Mike Elias and company and words. So, yeah, the action is they have not signed a guy that could step into second or third base in a permanent role if need be. And to me, that's a huge vote of confidence for not only Jackson Holliday, but Kobe Mayo as well.
And with that, that does it for this episode of Orioles on the Verge. We will be back later this week to look at the Orioles' latest international signing class and break down some of the new prospects joining the organization. That will be coming up later on this week. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, Blue Sky, TikTok, and YouTube. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to our Patreon community and check that out. Become a paying member today at the $3, $5, or $10 levels and have access to our daily top 50 prospects countdown that just got underway this month and is going to continue well into February, so you don't want to miss that. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, presented by BetOnline and part of the Believe Podcast Network.